Hello, this is Photography Gamer. Welcome back to the channel. Thank you to everyone who watched the previous episode on Borderlands 3. In today's episode, I'll be looking at the photo mode in No Man's Sky. I'll be breaking down the game's photo mode functions. Following this, I'll focus on this episode's special topic, copyright in virtual photography, where I'll be discussing copyright and how it applies to virtual photographs taken in computer games. Finally, I'll conclude the episode with some questions I've received from the virtual photography community. So we're looking at No Man's Sky today, which is it's an okay mode. There's not a massive amount of functionality, but there's enough here to do some good photos. Obviously, it's a very diverse, colourful game because each game world is slightly different, so there's plenty of capacity to take interesting shots. But let's break down the photo mode. So first, we have basic functions. To enter the photo mode, press down on the D-pad, then go right to the camera icon and press X. If you use the left and right joysticks, you can move the camera around. If you use up and down on the D-pad, you can crane up and crane down. If you crane up, you'll have a more aerial perspective. Craning down will put like a sort of a ground level shot. It's quite difficult though because the D-pad is very insensitive. It should really have been done with the triggers or the joystick, but there you go. If you click R3, that moves the sun to the center of your image, like where you're looking, the sun will appear in the middle. So that's very good if you want to change the ambient light or the sunset or the time of day. If you press triangle, it will hide the menu when you're ready to take your shot. If you press the share button, that will take your photo. And if you press circle, that will exit the photo mode. Also, if you press square, it will change settings or save effects. And you also have the option to restore the default settings on all of them if you've kind of done an edit and you're not really happy, so you just want to go back to the beginning. Okay, next we have the sort of tab for scene. Now that has 5 options. The first option is time of day. So that's a more intricate version of the R3 clicking function. If you want to micro change the time of the day, you can do that. That's good for changing the direction of the light, the temperature of the light, that kind of thing. Then you have fog density, so if you want a crystal clear image, you obviously want to get rid of fog altogether. But fog can add nice atmosphere to an image, so don't be afraid to have fog in your shot. Then we have cloud level, which dictates the atmospheric cloud, which again, if you want a crystal clear image with no clouds, get rid of all that. But it can create a nice sort of dynamic atmosphere in the skyline. Fourth, we have vignettes. Now, vignettes are basically black graduated borders on the edge of the image. They start out dark, they progressively get lighter until you get to the center of the image, and that is crystal clear. The idea is a vignette is there to try and bring your eye into the center of the shot and try and sort of blur or darken things on the periphery that aren't actually that important. Then we have screen filter. So these are basically colored filters, and they have quite a nice variety. So I would say in terms of the features, this is probably the best feature. There's many different options, and I would recommend just going through these when you're taking pictures, because you might find one or two that you just always gravitate towards, but there's loads of options there. Really, really impressive. Then we go to the lens tab that has 4 options. Field of view. Think of that like a zoom, so that's representative of the frame. You can go right close with a zoom, you can go far out and make it like panoramic. When you're far out, the image might look a bit weird because it's unnaturally wide. So it might look like a fisheye lens, it might have a curvature because it's more wide than it would be normally. Then we have depth of field. So you can turn that off or on, or you can have light, full or auto far. They all create slight different variations, so try those out. Then we have focal distance. So the focal distance is where the focus originates. So at what point do you want the focus to be? If there's a character in the distance, you want them in focus, make the focal distance match up to where they are. Then you deal with focal depth. So you can have the entire image in focus, or you can have a very, very narrow area in focus. And if you do that, everything will be blurry. So you can have a subject, very, very narrow focal depth. So the subject will be in focus and everything else will be blurry. That's good if you want washed out colors. But if you want everything in focus, then you just deal with that appropriately with the focal distance and the focal depth. Okay, those are the photo mode functions in No Man's Sky. So it's pretty limited, not many compared to a lot of other games, but there's enough there. One good thing is you can move the camera very far away from the action, so you can do really nice big panoramic shots. Good filters, it's a very colourful game. Negatives, no contrast, exposure, saturation or detailed settings. You can't actually alter your character's pose in the photo mode, that's poor. The craning button using the D-pad is a really terrible idea because it's so unbelievably sensitive. Like you touch it, it goes miles out of distance from where you wanted it. And generally it's a pretty cumbersome photo mode, but it has enough features there. You know, it's like any photo mode. You can still take good pictures, but you maybe have to work a little bit harder with this one than you would with others. So in terms of scoring, I'd probably give the photo mode, or I don't know, maybe like an 8 out of 10. The filters and the kind of draw distance, the way you can draw the camera away, that kind of saves it. Otherwise it would be a lower score, but 8 out of 10. Okay, so now it's time for the special topic, copyright in virtual photography. Okay, so do you own the copyright to your virtual photographs? Well, the short answer is yes, you own the copyright to each original photograph you compose and create. However, you don't own the intellectual property rights relating to the art assets featured within the image, as these are owned by the publisher or the developer. One thing to note is that screenshots taken during cutscenes are not your copyright material, because the framing is fixed and these can't be stated as your own copyright material, much in the same way a screenshot of a Hollywood film can't be. So can you sell your virtual photographs? Well, this is a legally grey area. So far the industry hasn't clearly defined any laws relating to this that apply across the board, as it really hasn't been a massive issue to date. But I'd say it's worth reading the terms of use of any game you intend to create photos in, as some of these terms will have clear guidance stating that the publisher of the game has the right to use your virtual photograph for commercial use, so read the terms very carefully. But I'd say in general, any publisher wanting to use your virtual photo in some way should ask you and then credit you appropriately in the post. It's just common courtesy. For me, I do virtual photography, but I don't really worry too much about copyright or selling them like with my real life photography I do, because it's more of an individual unique creation that I've created without using someone else's art asset. One way I would describe it is, if you went to an art gallery with your real life camera and you took pictures of all the sculptures, the art exhibitions, the paintings, and then you try to sell those pictures, technically you're selling other people's art like copyright, because they created these pieces of art. Just taking a picture of it doesn't mean you own the rights to sell that. And it's a similar thing, that's the way I look at games. Like I wouldn't want to sell my photography, virtual photography, because I'm taking pictures of someone else's artwork. It's an interpretation, so it has creative merits, but it's an area that I probably would never go into. If I'm going to sell photographs, there'll be photographs I've taken in real life, composed in real life with things that are not technically kind of assets owned by other copyright owners. So it's different to real life photography because you are already photographing someone else's artistic creation within a game created by other artists. So, you have to understand that. But that does mean you do still have rights, but you also have to realize that it's not like taking a picture in real life. It's slightly different. For me, I see virtual photography as a gateway to real life photography. It's amazing how much you can learn from virtual photography modes that you can apply to real life photographs. And with real life photography, you have more legal rights and copyright control. So you do have rights, you do have legal rights, but you also have to understand the terms and you need to do your homework. But virtual photography, for me, I would say it's really fun, it's good practice, it keeps you kind of sharp, and it's a good gateway to real life photography. Okay, nearly done. We just have 3 questions from the community. So, first question, should I take photos in JPEG or PNG format? Which is better? Well, PNG is more detailed and larger files. JPEG, smaller file size and less clarity. The difference is kind of negligible if you're just posting on social media, but if you're intending to print them large or make alterations to the image in post-production in Photoshop, I'd probably recommend PNG if you're going to use them for posters, or if you've got clean edges like font and text in the image. I'd use PNG because PNG is always better for kind of graphical straight lines. But if you're just taking pictures to put on Twitter, JPEG's fine. Next question, what are the best games for photographing beautiful scenery? Well, I think Ghost of Tsushima, absolutely beautiful game. Horizon Zero Dawn, another one. But I think Assassin's Creed Odyssey is one that's underrated. It's such a vast, massive world, massive. And it's got some absolutely delightfully beautiful places. So like for me, Ghost, Horizon, AC Odyssey, those three I would recommend. Final question, should I use vignettes on every image? I'm never sure when to use them or when not to. You don't have to use them on every image. I don't. It depends on the image. Sometimes you want to emphasize the center, sometimes you don't. You know, like I think in film they get a bit obsessed with it. In like cinema, you see every frame has got vignetting because they just become conditioned to doing it because everyone does. But I don't think it's always necessary. It's really if it fits. Look at the vignette and does it accentuate the image? Does it make the image feel better to you? If that's the answer is yes, use a vignette. If you do it and it just looks weird, don't bother. You don't need to use it. It's a nice option to have, but it's not compulsory. Okay, there you go. That's another episode in the can. Thank you for watching. If you've got any questions or you've got any games you'd like me to cover, tweet me at photog_gamer. Information on the screen right now. I hope it's been useful. I hope you found it informative. No Man's Sky, it's a good game. Photo mode could be better, but it's functional enough to take good pictures. So have a go and let me know how you get on in the comments. For now, that's the end of the episode. Have a great day, everyone. Enjoy. Take some pictures, have a nice time, and I'll catch up with you next time. This is Photography Gamer, signing off. Thank you.